This is part 4 in a series on cohabitation where I've been talking about and contrasting impact and outcome of living together versus being married. When you get married, you are in a covenant. God says you've made a promise and you've made a covenant relationship. So if you're living together, you're in a conditional relationship. Let's look at that for a minute. I'm living together, it's conditional. If I get married, I'm saying that I'm in this relationship unconditionally. Now, granted, I know a lot of people operate in marriage as if it's conditional, but it's really not supposed to be. It's supposed to be that unconditional place where you feel safe. If we cohabitate, it's kind of like by mutual agreement. I agree, you agree. But if we're living together, it's unilateral. It's across the board. It's like I'm not having to cater to you more than you do to me, and you're not having to cater to me to keep me there, but we unilaterally have made an agreement that we're going to walk this thing side by side, and it's not just going to be by a mutual agreement, but by a God covenant that leads us into that. When you're in a cohabitating relationship, you can be very reactive. That's when I was talking about in part 3 of this, where you may have a problem and you say, hey, we need to work out the problem, and your partner goes, I'm not working on any problems, I'll just leave. You better just behave right, or I'm kicking you out, or something like that. It's always very reactive. Marriages can be reactive, but they try to work towards being proactive. We're always looking at how do we keep the marriage together? How do we do things the way that God would like us to do them so that we can proactively be joined the way that He would like us to be joined? Keep in mind, I've talked about this in the other videos, that cohabitation is actually based on distrust. I don't trust you to stay and love me, as I was talking about, so I don't want to take a chance on getting married. But marriage says, I trust you. Marriage says, I believe that we are going to be together for life, and I trust that enough to get married and to say publicly that this is our decision together, to trust one another for life. Living together is adversarial, just like I said, do it my way or the highway kind of attitude all the time. But when we're in a marriage, we want to advocate for the marriage. So many couples will come to me for marriage counseling because they want to advocate for their marriage. They want to see it work. But I don't get many cohabitating couples because honestly the first thing I'm going to tell them is you have to stop cohabitating and you have to look at being married. But the fact of the matter is they're just coming into me to kind of put a stamp of approval on how they can have a nice relationship when really they're not advocating for a lifelong marriage. It's static in a cohabitating relationship. You sort of move in together and you stop there. And your maturity stops there, your relationship stops there. But marriage is always dynamic. It's always growing. It's always changing. You change together. Cohabitating is egocentric. It's all about me and what I'm getting out of it. Marriage is heterocentric. How do we come together? How do we focus as a couple? Cohabitating is actually negative thinking, and marriage is positive thinking. Marriage is, I positively believe we're going to work at this together. Cohabitating always has an element of being temporary to it. I don't care how many times people say, we're going to be together forever or whatever. There's always an element that it's a temporary arrangement, that we're not really in it. And marriage says, I'm going to shoot for the permanent, and we are going to do this, and we're in it permanently. So it's cohabitation becomes very legalistic. Follow the rules, live the way I tell you to again, or I'm going to kick you out, or you're going to have to leave, or I'm not going to support you and the children. And marriage should be based on being spiritual. If we are doing marriage right, we're not doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for Jesus. We're trying to have our marriages be an example of Jesus. So if you'd like to know more about the cultural background, go to part 1. If you want to know about impact on the marriage and the family long term, that's part 2. If you want to know more about trusting and building relationship, that's part 3, and this is part 4. I'm Dr. Pauline Dillard, and this has been A Marriage Moment.